Welcome to Intelligent Investor Insights with Joshua Barone, your host and guide through the noise of today's markets. Here, we interpret the data behind the headlines, break down what's driving the economy and interest rates, and help serious investors make decisions rooted in clarity, not emotion. If you're looking for disciplined, research-driven insight to strengthen your portfolio, you're in the right place.
Welcome back. I'm Josh Barone. Today we're talking about what I'd call the vibe shift in software, how AI is rewriting the rules for SaaS, and what that actually means for your portfolio, not just for folks hanging out on Hacker News. For more than a decade, SaaS, software as a service, was the perfect Wall Street fairy tale. Predictable subscription revenue, high growth, great margins, land and expand sales playbook. If it had recurring revenue and a dashboard, it traded at nosebleed multiples and nobody blinked. Then we roll into early 2026 and that whole story hits a brick wall. A bunch of once beloved software names saw their stock prices get cut by 30 to 50% over a short window. Commentators started calling it the Great Software Correction or the SaaS pocalypse. Hundreds of billions in market cap, gone. Now, pull back for a second. We've seen growth scares before. Rates go up, people dump high multiple names, they eventually come back. This one feels different. The market isn't just saying, growth might slow for a few quarters. It's asking, is this business model still worth a premium in an AI-first world? The core problem. AI is attacking the traditional moats that made SaaS so special. 10 years ago, if you wanted a CRM, a project management tool, a fancy analytics dashboard, you either built a dev team or you paid up for a SaaS vendor who'd already done the hard work. The code was the moat. Lots of engineers, lots of time, lots of complexity. But with modern AI, especially what I'm going to call vibe coding, that moat is looking more like a puddle. If you can describe what you want in plain English and have an AI system spit out working production-grade software, then code itself starts to look like a commodity. Not worthless, but much less special. So instead of a normal cycle, growth slows, multiple compresses, eventually rebounds, we're seeing a structural repricing. The market is asking, if the expensive part, the code, is getting cheaper and easier to replicate, what's actually scarce? What still deserves a premium multiple over the next decade? That's the question I want you to keep in the back of your mind as we go. As an investor, whether you're picking your own stocks or talking with an advisor, the shift is from, is this a good SaaS company? To, what exactly is hard to copy here? Is it the data? The position in the tech stack? The switching costs? Or is it just a pretty interface sitting on top of logic and AI can recreate in a weekend? My dad used to say, if you don't know what you're paying a premium for, you're probably just paying it. That's where we are with a lot of legacy software. The great software correction is the market collectively realizing a bunch of these moats were actually just growth stories dressed up as infrastructure. So in this episode, we're going to walk through what vibe coding actually is, how it's shredding the old SaaS economics, what new moats look like, and then I'll give you a practical checklist you can use to underwrite software and AI exposure in your own portfolio. No hype, no doom, just what should a thoughtful investor do in this new environment? Let's start with this phrase, vibe coding. It sounds like a TikTok trend, but it's a very real shift in how software gets built. Plain English version. Vibe coding is using natural language, your regular spoken or written words, plus AI agents to generate working software. Not little code snippets, not toy demos, full production-grade applications. Front end, back end, database, integrations, deployment scripts, the whole thing. You're basically saying to an AI, here's the vibe of what I want this system to do, and the AI fills in all the technical details. That includes understanding your intent, choosing an architecture, writing the code, wiring up APIs, and even provisioning cloud infrastructure. Now, how is that different from the old low code or no code tools we've had for years? Those gave you drag and drop blocks, templates, maybe some visual workflow builders. They abstracted some complexity, but you still had to think like a developer. You had to understand what a database was, what an API did, and you were working inside pretty strict guardrails. Vibe coding blows past that. You don't start from blocks. You start from intent. You say, build me a customer feedback system where users can submit feedback on mobile or desktop. I want automatic sentiment analysis, custom PDF reports. It needs to plug into Salesforce and email my ops team when there's really negative feedback. In a mature vibe coding world, and we're very close, an AI could respond by scaffolding everything. A mobile-friendly front end, maybe React Native or whatever the flavor of the month is. Server code with APIs, a database schema, sentiment analysis models, the Salesforce integration, notification logic, automated tests, and deployment configs for a cloud provider. And here's the kicker. That goes from concept to running prototype in hours, not months. The cost? Mostly compute and a human with a clear idea of what they want. You don't need to hire a full dev team. You need someone who can describe the business problem clearly and then review and refine what the AI generates. So, why does this matter for SaaS? Well, think about how many generic SaaS products are basically a nice user interface on top of forms, dashboards, and some logic. Feedback tools, simple CRMs, niche analytics apps. If AI can spin those up on demand, tailored to your workflow, why pay a high per seat subscription for a one-size-fits-all solution? This is where we start to see the threat to those generic front-end heavy SaaS products. If their main value is we already built the screens and glued the APIs together, that value erodes fast in a vibe coding world. You can clone that functionality, customize to your business in a fraction of the time and cost. Now, does that mean all SaaS is dead? No. It means the bar for what's defensible is rising. Code alone is no longer a moat. The question shifts to what sits behind the code that AI can't easily recreate. We'll get there, but first, we need to look at how this hits the old SaaS economic engine. All right, let's talk about why legacy SaaS economics are under pressure. There are three big forces colliding here. First, commoditized development. When vibe coding lets you recreate 80% of an app's functionality with a few prompts, the "we spent years building this" argument loses punch. If a competitor, or even a decent in-house team, can stand up an alternative in weeks, it caps your pricing power. Customers start asking, why am I paying this much for something that's no longer hard to build? Second, technical debt. Quick definition, technical debt is all the messy complexity you accumulate when you optimize for speed over cleanliness. Old modules, patched features, spaghetti code, ad hoc integrations. Think of it like renovating a house where every owner added a random room without a blueprint. A lot of legacy SaaS companies have massive technical debt because they chased feature velocity for years. That's fine when the world is stable, but when you try to bolt AI onto that mess, it's like strapping a jet engine onto a 1940s airframe. Everything creaks, integrations break, security risk goes up. Meanwhile, AI native competitors start clean, architected around automation and agents from day one. Third, the revenue model. Traditional SaaS is built around human seats. You pay per user per month. But AI agents don't buy seats. They consume compute, data, and throughput. If a company can replace 50 human users with a few AI agents orchestrating workflows, that breaks the old land a team, expand to the whole company math. Now, the classic SaaS KPIs you've probably seen, ARR, NRR, CAC, LTV, they're still useful, but they tell you less about durability in this new world. Quick translations. ARR is annual recurring revenue, your annualized subscription run rate. NRR, net revenue retention, is how much existing customers grow or shrink year over year. CAC is customer acquisition cost, what you spend to get a customer. LTV is lifetime value, the total gross profit from a customer over the relationship. Historically, if ARR was growing fast, NRR was above 120%, CAC payback was short, and LTV was big, you said, great business, big moat, durable. But if AI can clone the product's core features and undercut pricing quickly, those metrics can change in a hurry. High NRR today can vanish when a cheaper AI-powered alternative appears that plugs into the same workflows. This is where what I call the complexity tax comes in. Some layers of the tech stack are just harder to replace. At the top, you've got UI-heavy systems of engagement, the pretty interfaces people click around in. Those are fragile. Underneath, you've got deeper infrastructure and systems of record, the core databases of truth for your business, your customer records, your financial data, your supply chain. Systems of engagement are exposed because they're mostly presentation and workflow logic, very accessible to vibe coding. Systems of record are harder to rip out because they're tightly woven into everything else and hold mission-critical data. Infrastructure, the plumbing that moves, stores, and analyzes data, also carries that complexity tax. You don't casually swap out the pipes in a running factory. So as an investor, you need to ask, is this company just renting attention at the UI layer, or is it embedded deeper where the complexity and data gravity live? The higher you are in the stack with no unique data or deep integration, the more nervous I'd be in an AI-driven, agent-heavy world. So if code is getting commoditized, what still deserves a premium multiple? This is where the new moats come in. First and foremost, data. Not just we store data, but proprietary, ethically sourced, hard to replicate data that becomes the system of record for some important domain. A system of record is the primary source of truth, the official ledger for something the business cares about. Customers, vehicles, shipments, financials, you name it. When code is cheap and copyable, the value shifts to who owns the best lens on reality. If a company has unique longitudinal data that customers rely on, and it uses that data to train domain-specific AI models, that's a moat. Even if someone vibe codes a clone of the interface, they can't instantly recreate years of high-quality, trusted data. Second moat, AI native infrastructure and automation platforms. These are often invisible to end users. They run in the background, orchestrating workflows across many systems, handling data pipelines, compliance, scaling, all the ugly stuff. They're built with AI and automation at the core, not as a bolt-on. Think of it as the shift from apps to plumbing. In the old world, the flashy app on top got the glory. In the new world, the durable value may sit in the orchestration layer, the platform that lets enterprises safely plug in AI agents, connect dozens of systems, and still sleep at night knowing data governance and security are handled. These infrastructure players tend to have characteristics I like: deep integration into many other tools, high switching costs, and a lot of complexity tax. Rip them out and your whole operation stops. That's the kind of pain that supports long-term pricing power. Third, vertical data fortresses. Think of ecosystems focused on a specific industry, where one or a few platforms become the default system of record and workflow engine for that vertical, and then layer AI on top. In auto, logistics, healthcare, finance, You get these hubs that sit in the center of all the transactions, data flows, and compliance requirements. When a company becomes that central nervous system for an industry, it gets network effects plus data advantages. Each new customer brings more data, which improves the AI, which makes the platform better, which attracts more customers. That flywheel is hard to beat with a generic horizontal product, even one that's cheaper. So to recap the new moat logic, 1, own unique, high-quality data and be the system of record for something critical. 2, live in the infrastructure or orchestration layer where the complexity tax protects you. 3, in verticals, become the default ecosystem, not just a point solution. Notice what's missing from that list. We have a beautiful interface, or we shipped features fast for 5 years. Those used to be enough to get you a big multiple. In the Vibe era, they're table stakes and increasingly replicable by AI. Let's bring this down to brass tacks. If you're holding software and AI names in 2026, how do you separate fragile stories from durable ones? Here's a simple underwriting checklist you can run through. Whether you're screening stocks yourself or grilling your advisor or a fund manager. First, where does this product sit in the stack? Is it a UI-heavy system of engagement, basically a nicer way to click buttons? Or is it infrastructure or a system of record, the source of truth and the plumbing everything else depends on? The higher you are in the stack with no deep data, the more I discount the durability. Second, what's the quality of the data assets? Do they own or steward unique, high-value data that improves with scale? Is it ethically sourced and compliant? Are they training domain-specific AI models on that data? Or are they just calling a generic model from someone else? Third, switching costs. If a customer wanted to leave, how painful is it? Do workflows grind to a halt? Do they risk losing historical context or breaking critical processes? Or is it mostly retraining users on a new screen with similar features? High retraining pain plus deep integration and data dependencies, that's what you want. Fourth, AI readiness of the architecture. Does the company have a clean, modular, cloud-native stack that can integrate AI agents and automation? Or are they lugging around decades of technical debt? Listen for clues. If every new AI feature sounds like a one-off integration, that's a red flag. If they talk about an AI platform strategy, shared models, common orchestration, governance, that's better. Now, how do you spot fragile stories? A few tells. They lead with beautiful UI and feature parity versus competitors. The revenue model is mostly seat-based with a land and expand story that assumes human headcount keeps growing. And the product feels like a thin layer over other people's data and infrastructure. Durable stories look different. They sit on mission-critical workflows. Payroll, compliance, core operations, industry-specific logistics. They control or aggregate networked data that customers rely on as a single source of truth. And they often live in that boring infrastructure layer where complexity is high and failure is expensive. Positioning-wise, here's how I think about it. And this is general, not individualized advice. 1, be willing to trim or avoid legacy SaaS names that are clearly UI-heavy, generic, and easy to clone with vibe coding, especially if the valuation still assumes years of high growth and zero disruption. 2, hunt for AI native and data moat winners. Infrastructure platforms, systems of record, and vertical ecosystems that have real complexity and real switching costs. These may look expensive on near-term earnings, but cheap on a 5 to 10-year view if the moat is real. 3, align your time horizon with the reality of the vibe shift. This transition will be noisy. You're going to see volatility, winners that look like losers for a year, and vice versa. If you're underwriting a thesis around data moats and infrastructure, you need the patience to let it play out through a couple of credit cycles and tech cycles. My bias is always don't rent stories, own systems. To wrap this up, AI and vibe coding are democratizing software creation, but they're also making true competitive advantage rarer and more valuable. Code is cheapening. Data, integration depth, and architecture quality are not. Your job as an investor is to stop paying premium prices for pretty veneers and start insisting on real structural moats beneath the interface. We'll keep coming back to this theme in future episodes as the landscape evolves. In the meantime, if you can look at a software name you own and clearly answer, here's what's genuinely hard to copy, you're ahead of most of the market already.
Thanks for joining Joshua on Intelligent Investor Insights. If today's discussion raised questions about your portfolio strategy, risk exposure, or how to navigate this late cycle environment, we invite you to connect with us. We work directly with investors who want data-driven guidance, institutional-level analysis, and a partner in building durable wealth. Reach out to start the conversation and take the next step toward becoming a more informed, confident, and resilient investor. Until next time, stay rational, stay disciplined, and invest with intelligence.